Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button if you guys are enjoying the content that we're throwing up. And make sure you guys hit the like button if you enjoy the video. And yeah, let's begin. What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and I want to cover the Planet of the Symbiotes, at least the second issue, the first part of the second issue, as part of King in Black. Okay, here's something to specify with regards to Planet of the Symbiotes. This is one of Marvel's attempts at an old throwback comic, and it's actually not bad. It's really good. It's really good. The one with American Kaiju, this is basically, Marvel's version of Godzilla. It's cool, it's interesting, but the Planet of the Symbiotes really is just an anthology series, right? It's just a book that collects a series of smaller stories, which I think is a genius idea, mostly because of the fact that it gives us the ability to see characters that we don't normally get to see or that we haven't seen in a long time, and then like an attempt to see whether or not we're interested in seeing anything more from them. The first issue, I would say the big standout star of the first issue was probably Scream. I've never cared about Scream, so I didn't really much care about the fact that she was in that book. I was like, moving on, and that was basically it. But American Kaiju, here's the thing, Todd Ziller, American Kaiju was a great concept that was terribly executed, right? So the idea here with American Kaiju, to kind of backstep this a little bit, in fact, there really isn't a whole lot that goes on in this comic, so we can just kind of peruse through the comic or peruse through this story as I'm kind of giving you guys some backstory here. So the idea behind this is that for those of you guys who remember when Marvel launched the original, not really the original, the 2015 Secret Wars event, in the aftermath of that, we got all new, all different Marvel, which was not all new and it was not all different. It was basically the same thing with a few couple change-ups, right? So Marvel basically turned a branding initiative into a BuzzFeed article, just complete and total clickbait. And so the result of this is that a lot of us were pissed, but then other people were mad because they didn't like the way that Marvel handled a lot of their stories. But at the outset of that, we basically got all new, all different Avengers. And what you had here was that instead of you having advanced idea mechanics, you had Avengers idea mechanics. And that was designed to build on the idea that Robert DaCosta, who was previously an X-Man, had basically bought advanced idea mechanics and taken it over towards the end of Jonathan Hickman's Avengers and New Avengers. And it was really Hickman just kind of wrapping up all these loose threads and kind of bringing all the various groups that existed out there, superheroes especially, in an attempt to like find a way to stop the incursions, and it didn't work. Just talking about that makes me want to go back and cover Avengers and New Avengers again, but we just finished remastering it and we're never going to remaster it again. So now I just have to go back and read it again, right? I cannot remaster a remaster. That's just one step too far, right? That's just, you're just surfing for views. That's all that is. You're just surfing for YouTube money. But nonetheless, the idea was that with this particular team functioning the way that it was, there was yet another attempt at Marvel to bring back the Super Soldier program. Now, Marvel does that occasionally. You go back to the old like Abraham Erskine Captain America comics, and you have the idea that like, Steve Rogers was injected with the Super Soldier Serum, and then Abraham Erskine died with the formula before it could be passed on to anybody else, and so the formula itself was essentially lost. After that, you just had like a whole host of attempts to duplicate the Super Soldier Serum or make something similar to it. So like that's where the Sentry Robert Reynolds comes from. That's how you got all the Weapons Plus weapon programs, right? So like Weapons 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up to like Weapon X or Weapon 10 with Wolverine, and even the ones beyond that, Phantom X, the Stevra-Kakus, who are just clones of Emma Frost, different things like that. The problem that the all-new Avengers ran into was that with all the knowledge of Abraham Erskine gone, and even the people who came after Abraham Erskine, so like Carol Hines and Professor Thornton and Abraham Cornelius, who were the three individuals that were the most responsible for turning Wolverine from Logan into Wolverine and the Weapon X project, and even as part of Weapons Plus, Canada's Department K, all that kind of stuff. Because all that information was gone, what the all-new Avengers basically had to do was kind of Frankenstein together a super soldier serum of sorts. And so what they ended up doing was combining the knowledge they did have of the super soldier serum, what limited knowledge they did have, alongside the mutant growth hormone, Pym particles, and the Connors formula, which turned Doc Connors into the Lizard, and then basically injecting this crazy cocktail into Todd Ziller, which turned him into this Godzilla-esque character. Now, one of the reasons why you never really saw anything come after that, or really come out of his character, is you did have the storyline in issue number 9, which ran into issues 10, and I think even as far back as issue number 7, is that he did go on a mission to like rescue Rick Jones, right, the friend to the Incredible Hulk, and so on and so forth. But for the most part, there was a lot of disdain towards all new, all different Marvel from a lot of older fans who felt betrayed, and a lot of newer fans who had no idea what the heck was going on because it just felt so far removed from what they expected to see in Marvel Comics, especially those coming from the movies who expected like the movie adaptation in comics, and then taking their lead from a lot of fans who didn't really like all new, all different Marvel. It turned people off to the concept. And so it was kind of like, okay, this thing exists, moving on, and just sort sort of running on to the next thing. Now, I personally didn't have a whole lot of grudge with All New, All Different Marvel. I really didn't have a lot of beef with it. It was just kind of a thing that was there, you know, and so I enjoyed it. You know, it was fun. It had great moments and it had bad moments, just like every single comic book era in the history of comic books in general. But that was kind of the story of Todd Ziller, right? Now, in terms of this, right, like what's going on here and why he's in this place, it's pretty simple and pretty straightforward, right? He was basically just released by the federal government because he's one of the few beings that looks like he can stand against the power of the dragons of Knull. Now, a lot of this comes down to like the nature of the powers he possesses, right? So because he's essentially kind of a Frankenstein of these different elements of you know, Marvel's science division, more or less. He has kind of like the healing ability of the lizard. He's got the ability, or at least he does grow in size, like we see with Hank, you know, with Pym particles when you know, Hank Pym or Scott Lang or any one of those guys ends up becoming like Giant Man, more or less. But he's also got, you know, powers that are similar but not exact to Abomination and the Hulk, right? So he has like the strength level of the Hulk along with like the aggression and rage of Abomination, but it's not limitless strength, right? It's not like, you know, the angrier he gets, the stronger he gets. It doesn't necessarily include that thing, just because of the fact that he was exposed to gamma radiation treatments, right? So he doesn't really have the same exact principles of the Incredible Hulk. But just by sheer size and strength alone, he's more than enough to go against these dragons. Now, at the end of the day, it doesn't really make a whole lot of difference here because we know that like the guy who's leading all this Knull is powerful enough to conscript, you know, Celestials into his bidding, right? So anybody who can conscript Celestials, these cosmic gods that create life, is certainly going to be far more powerful than a hybrid of you know, Giant Man and the Incredible Hulk and Abomination and somebody who's on mutant growth hormone to like amplify their powers even further, right? So, you know, the guy's strong, he's wildly capable, but he's basically just Marvel's version of Godzilla. Now, I doubt you're gonna see anything more from him out of this, right? You may see a little bit more over the course of King in Black, but this little book here is not written by Donny Cates. So it's not as though Donny Cates sees American Kaiju Todd Ziller as somebody akin that can actually like show up consistently over the course of the Venom run. And even if he did, the Venom run's coming to an end, right? We know it's coming to a close with like maybe a story arc after the end of King in Black, and then that's basically it. That's it for Donny Cates' run. What he works on next, I don't know. I don't care. I'll read it regardless. But yeah, this is basically the idea behind Todd Ziller. I mean, he is like super hyper patriotic, which you guys can tell just by looking at what's going on here. He's like a hyper patriot, right? So he's like, America never makes any mistakes or anything like that. You know, America's always, you know, the way to go. He's very similar to Frank Simpson to Nuke in that way. But again, you know, there's not a whole lot going with this story. It's literally just like, it's like a 7-issue story where it's like we have Marvel's version of Godzilla who's just in New York tearing some stuff up, and he feels a little bit bad that he's destroying things that belong to people, but it's all in greater service. It's all in service of a greater whole because he's just destroying the symbiote dragons of Knull, and that's cool. I will say this: his design is amazing, and one of the big shames is you never really see anything come out of him. It'd be different if this was back in like the 1970s when like Fin Fang Foom was like a great big huge deal. Then sure, if you had been created back then, you'd see a lot of prominence with his character. But for the most part, you don't really see anything going on with him, right? He's just kind of here and he's doing some things, and then that's basically it. And then the story basically just kind of ends, right? It's like ending ... and that's basically it. We might see a follow-up. I'm not really sure, but I doubt it, right? Because he ends up just kind of reverting back into his human form, and then that's effectively it. But with that being said, guys, we're gonna bring this to an end. If you guys are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys want me to cover the original story where we first saw American Kaiju, I can do it. It's not gonna kill me or anything. It's a one-off story, right? So I mean, we can do that on like a random Saturday or like a Sunday or something like that. If you guys want that, let me know. I mean, I don't have any problem doing it. I think it'd be kind of cool, right? So just leave some comments down below, and I will catch you all later. Peace.